Hey Navigators, today I am in Tarpon Springs, home of sponge docks, Greek history, amazing food, and awesome sights. So let's hit the road. Today we're in Pinellas County, in the city of Tarpon Springs, a Greek-infused town filled with amazing restaurants, a beautiful culture, and men who walked at the bottom of the ocean. Hey, good morning, Navigators. Today is a great day because I got up at sunrise. I felt like I got to sleep in. My last couple of rides, I've been getting up pretty early, and I got to tell you, I'm normally a night person, so the idea that I'm actually getting to sleep until sunrise feels like a gift. Now, I have a long-term goal as a navigator. I don't want to say it out loud yet because not until I do some rides outside of Florida, which I have planned to do this year if all goes well. The last time I was planning on doing that, I was going to go up to the Carolinas where my parents used to live, and then the hurricane went through there and like really bad destruction. So it's a cool goal, and I am looking forward to meeting it. I don't know. I know I'm not making a lot of sense, but you guys you'll understand later. Today I'm going to Tarpon Springs. I had gone to Tarpon Springs before. It was my third ride. I want to say second or third ride, but it was before I really knew what I was doing. I didn't have all the camera equipment, and looking at it recently, I just didn't think I had done that town the visual justice it deserves. So I'm going back there, and I am going to do it right, or at least do it again. Hey Navigators, welcome back to Tarpon Springs, our second ride through this amazing little town. I definitely wanted to come back and give it its due. So here we are, bright and early in the morning, and I'm glad we're back because I realized there were some places I really wanted to visit that I had missed last time. So enjoy the semi-comfortable seat on the back of my Navi, and let's take in this adorable little town. Well, before I share with you the story of Tarpon Springs, I do want to apologize for my voice. It's a little weaker, a little raspier. There's an incredible drought going on right now. All the grass is dead and dry, and there's a lot of pollen and sand and dust and debris in the air. It's just really difficult. So my voice is a little weak, so just bear with me. So in 1876, a man named A.W. Ormond traveled south from South Carolina with his teenage daughter Mary, and they built a small cabin beside a small, still body of water called Spring Bayou. They were the first settlers. The wilderness was thick. The silence was vast. A year later, a sailor named Joshua Boyer left Nassau aboard his sloop, a single-masted sailboat, with the vague ambition of seeing the world. He eventually docked near the Ormond cabin and found himself welcomed as a visitor. He liked the land, he liked the bayou, and he liked young Mary quite a lot. So much that he built his own cabin nearby and asked for her hand in marriage. 2 settlers became 3, and the wilderness very nearly became a neighborhood. Now, here is where the fish comes in. In 1879, Mary was standing by the bayou when a great silverfish vaulted out of the water, caught the light, and splashed back down. She turned to her husband and reportedly cried, "Look at that tarpon spring from the water." And just like that, Tarpon Springs had a name. Now, some historians, it must be said, have quietly noted that the fish was almost certainly not a tarpon. Tarpon are deep water fish. The bayou is shallow. It was probably a mullet, and I've actually seen mullet jump, so yeah, that's probably true. This is where Mary Ormond's legacy is truly secure. She made the right call because, as one historian observed, Mullet Springs just doesn't have the same ring. Now, in 1881, the state of Florida was teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. Enter Hamilton Disston, a wealthy Philadelphia saw manufacturer with deep pockets and a very large appetite for real estate. Disston made one of the most audacious land deals in American history. He bought 4 million acres of Florida for 25 cents an acre. 4 million acres at a quarter apiece. The deal included Tarpon Springs. Disston surveyed the land, planned its layout, and persuaded the railroad to come. On February 12, 1887, Tarpon Springs was officially incorporated as a city. Population? 52 people. 33 of those 52 residents gathered in the new schoolhouse to elect their first mayor. Among the elected, Joshua Boyer, the sailor from Nassau who had sailed out to see the world, found a bayou and a girl, and apparently decided the world could wait. With the railroad came northern tourists, wealthy northerners. They built Victorian mansions, established hotels, opened churches and schools. Tarpon Springs became a seasonal resort town, charming, beautiful, and about to be completely transformed by something lurking just beneath the surface of the water. Well, it's that time again. It's time to feed Algo, the algorithm. You know, a lot has changed with the advent of AI. YouTube was one of the prime places that people would go to get answers on how to do things. You know, you'd watch a video on how to fix a washing machine or your car, something like that. And a lot of that traffic has diminished because people are using AI solutions to get those answers. The only reason I bring that up is I'm really close to achieving one of my milestone goals, which is 500 subscribers. So if you could, the focus I'm asking this time is, well, you know, of course, I'd love you to watch the video. And I'd love you to, you know, hit buttons or say things. But the thing I really would ask of you is that please subscribe if you haven't, because I just want to reach that goal. I'm so close. And these rides mean so much to me, and I love sharing them with you. And one of the algorithms that I think will matter more over time, especially as the traffic has dropped on YouTube, at least currently, is that people are still interested in your content, not because it happens to show up in your feed, but because you're supporting the creators that are doing it. So if you could do me the honor of subscribing to this channel and come back and visit as often as you can, as often as I create a video that you're interested in. And if you could do that, I would appreciate it so much. You don't have to. I won't be offended, but that's just a goal that I have, and I'd appreciate it if you could be a part of that. So thank you. It was a business associate of Disston's named John Cheney who first noticed what the tourists had missed. The waters surrounding Tarpon Springs were absolutely teeming with sponges. Not the thin, synthetic kind you'd buy at the grocery store. Thick, dense, natural wool sponges of a quality that was rare anywhere in the world. By 1890, the sponge industry had become the town's leading enterprise. That year alone, Cheney's company sold nearly $1 million worth of sponges. That's $1890. The docks roared to life. Workers from the Bahamas and Key West waded out in rowboats, using long three-pronged rakes and buckets to pull sponges from the shallows. By 1904, Tarpon Springs was the undisputed leader of the sponge industry in the United States. 150 boats, 1,000 men, 6 months at sea every year. For over 30 years, the sponge industry would be the largest in Florida, larger than citrus, larger than tourism. But in 1905, something happened that would change everything again. And it started with a Greek sponge buyer named John Cocoris. Cocoris had immigrated from Greece in 1895. He knew something the Florida spongers didn't. There was a better way to get those sponges. In June 1905, he and his brothers completed the first mechanized sponge dive in Tarpon Springs using rubberized suits, weighted boots, and a hand-operated air compressor that let a man walk the seafloor for hours. The haul was extraordinary. Word traveled fast, especially across the Atlantic. Cocoris wrote his former colleagues on the Greek islands of Kalymnos, Simi, and Chalki, islands with centuries of sponge diving tradition. They came, first dozens, then hundreds. By 1916, a colony of 2,000 Greeks had taken root in this small Florida town, importing their boats, their music, their food, and their faith, entirely unchanged from the Mediterranean. They were not just workers, they were builders. Within a decade, Greeks owned roughly half the sponge fleet and half the businesses in town. Families opened bakeries, restaurants, and grocery stores. The main riverfront was named Dodecanese Boulevard, after the island chain they left behind. In 1907, a trading hall opened, the Tarpon Springs Sponge Exchange, where sponges were auctioned and fortunes were made. At its height, it was the largest sponge market in the Western Hemisphere. Now, the Greeks didn't just bring sponge diving techniques and recipes, they brought their faith. As the community grew, a Greek Orthodox church rose in Tarpon Springs named St. Nicholas, patron saint of Greece and protector of those who go to sea. It was the right church for a town of divers. As the population continued to swell, a larger cathedral was needed. So the sponge divers funded it in the most fitting way imaginable by donating a portion of every sponge harvest. Dive by dive, the cathedral grew. Its current structure, blending Byzantine architecture with modern styling, was completed in 1943. The cathedral's most extraordinary feature arrived as a gift from the Greek government: white marble quarried near Athens. The marble had originally been shipped to New York City for display at the 1939 World's Fair, meant to impress millions of visitors from around the globe. When the fair closed, the marble made its way to Tarpon Springs, where it was quietly set into the altar and the bishop's throne. Stone that was meant to impress the world became part of the daily devotion of a small Florida town. Walk inside the cathedral today and it will take your breath away. And I gotta say, my son and I happened to stop by once and a volunteer showed us around. It is amazing. Well, here's some stats for you. And one of the things I noticed in comparison to the first time I rode through Tarpon Springs is that the cost of living has actually dropped a little bit. So that's good news. And I actually have some more data points, so I'm excited to share those with you. So Tarpon Springs has a population of about 26,000 people, and they live in about 11,500 residences. 80% of the residents are white, 11% are Hispanic, 6% are African American, 3% are multiracial, and 1% are Asian. 12% of the residents are under 18, 16% are between 18 and 34, 21% are between 35 and 54, another 21% are between 55 and 64, and 31% are 65 and older. And what's interesting is that number over 65 has increased over the last couple of years since my first ride through Tarpon Springs. 93% of the residents have graduated high school, while 32% have graduated college. The median home value is about $400,000, and the average rent is about $2,100 a month. The median household income is nearly $68,000, which is below the U.S. average of $78,000. The per capita income is around $55,000, which is a little more than the $43,000 national average. and 10% of the residents live below the poverty line. Now, each January, on the Feast of the Epiphany, the town gathers at the water. A special Mass is said at St. Nicholas Cathedral. Then there's a procession through the streets down to Spring Bayou, the same bayou where more than a century ago, Mary Ormond watched a fish leap and gave the town its name. Boats are tied in a great semicircle around a platform in the water. 50 or so young men, well, boys really, aged 16 to 18, they stand ready at the edges. The Archbishop blesses the crowd, blesses the boys, and blesses a white cross. Then he throws it into the water. The boys dive. In the cold January water, they search, and one of them, the one who surfaces with the cross held high, receives a special blessing from the Archbishop. His name is engraved on a statue outside the cathedral. And for the next year, he carries that blessing and also bragging rights. That tradition began in 1906, and it has not stopped since, not once. In January 2020, the Greek Prime Minister himself attended the ceremony, and it was the same ceremony, essentially unchanged, that the first sponge divers had brought from the Aegean Sea more than a century before. In 1947, disaster struck. A red algae bloom, or red tide, swept through the Gulf and killed the sponge beds with breathtaking totality. Almost overnight, the industry that had built the town, funded the cathedral, and drawn immigrants from across the Aegean was simply gone. The St. Petersburg Times predicted that Tarpon Springs would wither and die without federal intervention. Synthetic sponges were already eating into demand. Many divers left. Many people left. But the Greeks stayed. The sponge docks, the cathedral, Dodecanese Boulevard, the Epiphany, the braided history of Greek island culture transplanted to the Florida Gulf Coast. These weren't just memories. They were, it turned out, exactly what the American tourists were looking for. A handful of sponge boats still leave the dock. Their decks are filled with tourists now, not divers, but somewhere in the hold, the tangy smell of salt and sponge still lingers, and someone always asks where it comes from. Walk down near the docks on any afternoon, and you'll find sponges still for sale, gathered from nearby waters, not far from where John Cocoris first pulled on his rubberized suit. Slovaki smoke drifts across the boardwalk. Greek pastries sit in bakery windows. And somewhere, most likely, a teenager is practicing holding his breath, preparing to come up from the cold January water with something precious in his hands. The cross. The cross is still thrown in the spring bayou every year. The same water where a century and a half ago a girl watched a fish jump and gave a town a name worth keeping. Now, if you watch the Dunedin video, you'll remember that there's a causeway that leads out to an island, Honeymoon Island, where there's beaches and a lot of places to go. Well, Tarpon Springs has its own version of that, and that's the Fred Howard Park. It's one of those places that really, well, it sounds almost too good to be true, especially if you've never been to Florida. Fred Howard Park is 155 acres of, well, like Gulf Coast paradise in many ways. It's where Tarpon Springs meets the Gulf, where a mile-long causeway leads you from the shaded mainland forest out to the white sand beach on what used to be its own offshore island. The park bears the name of Fred H. Howard, a real estate businessman and, well, civic force of nature. Who was elected the first mayor of Tarpon Springs back in 1945, and he spent the next 3 decades pushing, lobbying, well, and generally refusing to take no for an answer until this stretch of coastline was secured for the public. When the park was dedicated in 1966, a bronze plaque was bolted to the base of the flagpole, crediting him for his untiring efforts. Which feels like exactly the right word for a man who also served as the city commissioner and vice chair of the Pinellas County Park Board for over 30 years. Today, nearly 2 million people a year show up to enjoy what Fred built. Swimming in the calm, shallow Gulf waters, kayaking, watching dolphins or manatees cruise by, spotting eagles or gopher tortoises or fox squirrels in the wooded areas, and then doing what everyone does at Fred Howard Park, stopping whatever they're doing and just staring at the sunset. And one of the things I really love about this causeway is that it's not as popular, for some reason, as the Dunedin Causeway. So if you're visiting the area and you want to enjoy the waters, the calm waters for kayaking or boating or swimming, if you want to go to a beach that you're getting the full beach experience, but it's less used and more isolated, but on the same beautiful Gulf as all the other main amazing beaches in the area, well, Fred Howard Park and the island at the end of the Causeway, it's a perfect way to get all the Florida experience in a beautiful small little package. Look at these beaches. Aren't they amazing? I had one of my drones and I hadn't used it in a while, and so I was trying to get a really nice high shot of the beach, but every time it went up, it said the battery was low and then came straight back down. And I tried, like the battery was fine.
Hey Navigators, wasn't that a cool ride? Man, the cool thing I love about the Tampa Bay area is that like these cities are not that far away, but their histories and their cultures are so drastically different. When you're in like Safety Harbor in Clearwater, that's more like Spanish themed or Spanish influence. You get to Dunedin, it's Scottish influence, and just right up the road is Tarpon Springs, which is completely Greek influence. And I just love that. That's so cool. Another thing I love is that it is only 10:21 in the morning and I'm already done, and I'm about 30 minutes away from my house. So I think that's pretty cool considering some of the long rides I've been taking lately. Yeah, I actually took, and if I ever get down there again, you'll see it on the video for that city, but there's a small little town called Arcadia. I've tried to go down there 3 different times. It's about an hour and a half away from my house. And the first time I went down there, I thought I had some issues with my car. Second time, I'd packed up and then looked up, they were going to have these major events where all the main street was closed. And the third time, I went down there and there was construction on the main road. So I've spent a lot of time on the road for 0 rides on that city. And then my last ride was up in St. Augustine, which was a 4-hour drive up and a 4-hour drive back. So I had to leave like 3:30 in the morning, 3 in the morning, somewhere around there. So the idea that I was able to sleep until sunrise, because I packed my bike up the night before, sleep until sunrise, get on the road, get to the location within a half hour, be done by around 9:30, 9:45, pack up the bike, get the truck ready, hit the road, and I'm going to be home before lunch. That's nice. I pretty much run out of locations for that. So I got to enjoy this while I can. Anyway, I'm really happy that you joined me today. As always, I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Well, Navi-Gators, I hope you have enjoyed this awesome little ride through Tarpon Springs. I know I did. It was an amazing day, amazing weather, and a short trip home. So I loved every bit of it. I will say it's going to take a little more time to shoot these episodes simply because I've kind of run out of locations that are within quick driving range. I'm going to have to travel farther, which means more planning and more time. So please be patient with me. I'm going to continue to create content. It will just take a little more time to do so. But as always, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this ride. I've said it 1,000 times. Well, not 1,000 times, but I've said it a lot, that I believe that time is our most precious treasure, and the fact that you have spent any of that with me means the world to me. Thank you so much. So remember, Navigators, when you're out on the road, please be generous, be kind, be safe, and most of all, have fun. All right, I'll see you guys next time.